Well, good morning. Thank you for coming. Thanks to Sheriff Wayne Ivey for hosting us here. It's always great to be in Brevard County. We're also pleased to be joined by Nikki Jones, who is an angel wife, who's going to tell her story, and she has helped us on some of these issues in the past relating to illegal immigration. And then Dave Kerner, Executive Director, Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, also oversees Florida Highway Patrol. So we have a charge to keep, and that is to end the illegal immigration crisis in this country once and for all. We have worked for 4 years to fight against Biden's open border policies, lax enforcement. We used every tool at our disposal to protect the people of Florida. We've banned sanctuary cities, instituted E-Verify. We have other things protecting against healthcare. All these things that we've done have been helpful, but when you have a president who wasn't willing to enforce the law, it just wasn't going to be something that was going to be enough. And so the American people spoke in November. President Trump ran. His promise was the largest deportation program in the history of the United States of America. And so that needs to get done, right? You do not have enough federal resources to be able to fulfill that mandate. The only way you can do it is if you have state and locals actively cooperating with these agencies to be able to effectuate interior enforcement of immigration laws and additional deportations of illegal aliens. And so we knew that there was going to be a series of executive orders issued. A couple weeks ago, I called a special session of the legislature to deal with the illegal immigration crisis. The leaders of the House and Senate said that it was not urgent and it was premature and it could wait a few months. That didn't go over well with voters because they want action now. We have a sense of urgency to get it done now. Then they said it was a stunt to do it, and then they had all these, and then so finally they came in, and even though we had proposals that would actually work, they decided to do a bill that not only won't work, that actually is weaker than what we have today. And I'll tell you why that's the case. Now they named it the Trump Act because they think if they put his name on it, people will think. Voters here are looking at the details on this because they want to solve the problem. They know these politicians have been giving lip service to voters for years. Then when they have an opportunity to do something, they do half-baked measures and don't get the job done. We don't have time for weakness. We don't have time for half-baked measures. We've got to be strong. We've got to lead the way when it comes to immigration enforcement. And so we have a lot of different issues that are kind of out in the ether. Everything I've proposed is stronger than what the legislature has done. And I don't have any pride of ownership. I don't need any credit. I hope that they will do strong policies. Maybe they can do stronger than ours. They can have 100% of the credit. But the reality is we're not going to accept weak policies. So what do we need to do? Yeah. First, we need to end catch and release of illegal aliens. So we have a proposal to make sure that there's a presumption if an illegal alien's arrested and brought before a judge on charges that they're detained. And if they're detained without bail, then you can contact immigration and immigration can pick them up and then they can deport them from the country. The bill that the legislature passed doesn't provide a presumption. The judges will be able to release them without any type of presumption or detention. That is not keeping the people of this state safe. We need to detain and deport, not catch and release. Now, they have said, well, they want the locals involved at the jails. And there was a debate about, is there going to be any enforcement of immigration law? And basically the people running the bill said, well, in jails, if you have an illegal in jail, you can tell ICE if there's a detainer. Obviously, you should do that. That's like the bare minimum. But even that, so say we have someone coming out of our prison system or a local jail, they will tell ICE under their bill, but if ICE doesn't come get them, they just release them. We don't do that. We think that you have to give them the ability to transport the illegal to ICE if ICE doesn't come to get it. Why would we just release them back onto the street? It doesn't make any sense, and so we're not going to do that. Now, we have been doing a lot of enforcement already. We obviously was tough with Biden, but just since President Trump took office, We've got highway patrol. We just did a bus with FDLE down in South Florida. Over 20 Chinese illegals busted. FDLE just did something with Homeland Security, Special Investigative Tallahassee, busting a bunch of illegals. And so we've got our agencies out there actively working, and we'll continue to do that. Now, what the legislature did, they passed a bill that would end any of what I've been doing to help protect Florida. They would get rid of all of that. Everything Dave Kerner's been doing with Highway Patrol, FDLE, any of our other assets, they terminate that. And they don't let us go that. And they transfer responsibility for immigration enforcement away from the governor to the Commissioner of Agriculture. What? First of all, they don't have the resources necessary to do this. Now they're saying they're going to give a lot of money, create a new bureaucracy. It's not going to work. Obviously, the Commissioner of Agriculture, and given how people have come and worked illegally in that industry, is like the fox guarding the hen house. That's not where immigration enforcement has typically gone. So it's a huge sign. And so people are like, well, why would you give it to the Agriculture Commissioner? We already have agencies in place working under the governor's office. And oh, by the way, even our most fiercest critics acknowledge we handle crises and emergencies very well here in Florida. We've got a great apparatus, we've got great people, we make good decisions, we get the job done for people. So if you're really serious about immigration enforcement, man, you would want to empower us to do the job. But instead they're taking it away. So people say, well, why would you do that? How is that going to help increase deportations? The answer is, it's not going to. They know it's not going to. This is by design. They want to neuter the interior enforcement that we're already doing under state government working in concert with these federal agencies. So their bill would result in fewer deportations than we're doing right now in the state of Florida. There's no question about that, because they're neutering state ability to help. So even if like Wayne wanted to do something under the bill, at Brevard Sheriff, he's not allowed to interact with any federal agencies unless he gets the approval of the Commissioner of Agriculture. How ridiculous is that? Why the hell would you put that in? They're putting it in because they want to put the kibosh on this. So here's where I think the fix is in, because we're either going to have the largest deportation program in history, and you need the locals and states to help with that, otherwise it's not going to happen, or you're not. The bill the legislature did, it mentions agriculture over 30 times. You know how many times it mentions the word deport? 0 times. Because that's not what they want. They don't want any interior enforcement outside somebody in a jail that can be turned over. If we saw the Chinese illegals, we busted them yesterday working with the local police down there in South Florida. These guys, Dave Kerner's guys, they busted people. We need to do that. Otherwise, you're never going to solve this problem. And so under their bill, the massive numbers of illegals in Florida will remain. You are not going to see a meaningful dent in that because it'll basically be whatever the federal government's limited to. They have limited assets. If you're not having state and local supplement, you are really, really missing the boat. So that's just the reality. And it's also, President Trump declared a national emergency on immigration when he became governor, or when he became president. I have an emergency for the state of Florida. We've used it for maritime operations to stop boats coming from Haiti and the Bahamas and Cuba with illegal aliens. We're using it with Highway Patrol to be able to protect people. The legislation they did, just as the president is declaring this to be a national emergency, they terminate Florida's emergency on illegal immigration. And so that hamstrings our ability to actually protect the public even more. Is there anybody that voted for that? How many of these guys ran and asked for your vote and said they were going to kneecap the state's ability to combat illegal immigration? Not one of them did that. And yet that's what they voted on yesterday. Gangs. We have provisions that are really strong on these transnational gangs, like these Venezuelan gangs. They initially had nothing in their proposal on gangs. They put some stuff in, but still not nearly enough in terms of what we're doing. We also need to address, because yes, go after the cartels with the foreign terrorist organization designation, 100% I'm for it. Build the wall, do the border fortification, 100% I'm for it. But we also have to address the incentives that people have to come illegally. And if you eliminate the incentives, well, then that's going to help a lot of the problem right then and there. So what's one of the main incentives that brings people here to the United States and to Florida illegally? Employment. They can work the same job here in the United States and make more money, and then they send money back to their home country, to people there, in these remittances. So we have one, we did do E-Verify in Florida for private businesses, 25 employees or up. The legislature, I think, did that by design. They didn't want to go all the way, but still, it has helped. We want to strengthen E-Verify in Florida. They actually weaken what we already have with E-Verify. So there'll be even more of an incentive to come. It'll be easier to get employment. We also deal with this issue of the remittances. So if you want to send a wire transfer, we want to provide requirement that you have like an E-Verify on that you prove that you're here lawfully. And if you can't prove you have a right to be here, then you shouldn't be able to send remittances back if it's based on illegal labor. They did not include anything on dealing with the remittances, and I think the reason is because they don't want to eliminate the magnets. I think it's a deliberate policy choice. They don't want to eliminate the magnets, because if you eliminate the remittances, then fewer people would want to come here and work, and I think they're trying to service some of the demand for the illegal foreign labor. So it's a huge problem. They never dealt with any of that. Voting. You do not have to certify right now that you are a U.S. citizen. Even though you have to be a citizen to vote in Florida, you actually don't have to do that under penalty of perjury. We want to make sure that every voter has to say that you are a U.S. citizen and you're eligible to vote. You check that box and you're not a citizen, then we're going to hold you accountable with enhanced penalties. And it should be at the stage of registration. We shouldn't have to wait for an illegal alien to actually vote before you can prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, because then the vote's already counted at that point. So dealing with this at the front end, we think is really important. They did not add any teeth, and we need that to happen. So very, very weak in terms of what they did on the voting. The linchpin of all this, though, is there's a bunch of federal programs and authorities where states and locals can work in concert with the federal government to enforce immigration laws. Some of the stuff's relatively narrow, some of the stuff's really broad. Some of the executive orders that some of the executive orders that came out of the administration actually allows state and local law enforcement to be deputized to be able to exercise the authority of an immigration officer. So if you think about that, right now, for example, we've got boats in Florida. Now, President he has beefed up the Coast Guard, but and Biden wouldn't do that, so that's helped. But we still have our boats because we've intercepted a lot. If you intercept them on the sea, you can give them to Coast Guard, they take them back. If they make it to the shore, then all of a sudden, our guys can't really do anything. You got to turn them over. They will be deputized. They'll be able to make the same decisions that a Border Patrol or ICE agent will. And then we can have our guys just take them back to Haiti or Bahamas or wherever they're coming from, right on the spot. That is really significant. You will be able to empower locals to exercise immigration. So, for example, it's like, like Wayne could train, the federal government will train some of Wayne's deputies, right? And so if one of his deputies is responding to a call like an apartment complex, like domestic violence, some things that are frequent, but then you notice that there's, Tres de Agua, Venezuelan gang members down the hall, well, then you'll be empowered to go and take care of those guys and bring them in for immigration detention. So the ability to increase enforcement and increase the number of deportations, if you have state and locals having to be a part of these programs, it goes up dramatically. That's how you fulfill the mandate. That's how you have record numbers of deported illegal aliens to be able to have that. And think about 90% of interactions, 95% are going to be state and local. It is not going to be federal agents. They just have limited bandwidth and they have limited number. And even I think Congress will probably provide some more authority, I think Congress will probably do some other stuff, but that's going to take time to build up. We don't have time. You know, we've got 4 years to be able to get this done. And so we've got to start right now, and the state and locals need to be a part of this. Obviously, we're not a sanctuary jurisdiction, although their bill makes us a de facto sanctuary state because you're taking power away from the state government to be able to actively combat illegal immigration. But as of now, we're not. And so you can't sabotage, but we need to have cooperation, active cooperation, and you need enforcement. Because if you have some local police chief that doesn't believe in what the president's doing and wants to frustrate it or doesn't want to offer assistance, then you need to be able to hold them accountable, including suspending them from office. If you don't have enforcement, this stuff isn't going to work. So that's really, really important. And I think if you don't do the state and local piece, then none of this stuff is going to work. And so the question is, do we want to answer the call of the voters? Do we want to actually fulfill this promise? And it's not just president that made it. Republicans have been running against open borders for years and years and years. This is really the last shot, I think. If we don't do it now to the fullest extent, then it's just not going to get done. So here's the moment to do it. And we got to have all hands on deck. But you have to have maximum participation in these programs, and they will work. It will absolutely work. This is not a question at this point for us about whether it can be done. We know it can be done. It's just a matter of will. You got to have the will to do it. And what the legislature did was provide a lot of window dressing. They provided a lot of money to house illegal aliens. I don't want to house them. I want to deport them. Why would we want to spend money on housing them? Let's get them out of here. A lot of money for the Commissioner of Agriculture to hand out money to law enforcement. I mean, first of all, I don't even know how long that would take. Not going to be effective at all. We've already got the infrastructure in place. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're already doing the job in state government, and that's very, very important. So we can do it, but you got to have all the ducks lined up in a row. And here's the thing. This is a pass-fail exercise. Either you're doing what needs to be done or you're not. And you can sit there and talk about these things and say this and say that, but this is an objective reality. And it's not just because I'm saying it. Read it for yourself. Is what they're doing going to make the difference that we know we need? Absolutely not. It would hinder our ability. Most of the operations we're doing in state government would be shut down. It would be a total disaster for the state of Florida. On the other hand, if we actually got tough, we were strong on the policy, man, you would see a huge, huge increase in enforcement. You would see the numbers go up in terms of the deportations. That would alleviate problems on law enforcement, on schools, on healthcare. People get into traffic accidents and they don't have insurance, and it's like, oh, you know what? And people say I think the view of the legislature is okay, well, if someone is a criminal, then we'll deport them. I want to deport them before they're victimizing people. I don't want to wait until they victimize somebody. So now's the moment to do it. What they did, last night is not going to pass muster. It is not what they told you they would do when they ran for office. It is not consistent with what all these Republicans ran on and all these Republicans promised the people that put them into office. And so we've got to do what the voters expect us to do, and we got to meet the moment. So I appreciate everyone being here. We're not going to quit on this. It's just too important to quit on. And so we're going to keep digging in until we actually get the job done. So thank you for doing that. Now, I want to pass it along, and we're going to hear from some of our other folks. So we'll start with Dave Kerner, head of Highway Patrol and Department of Highway Safety Motor Vehicles.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be here with you in Brevard County. Nikki Jones, thank you for being here. Thank you for your passion. My heart hurts for you and your family, but I'm inspired that you continue to be in this fight to make our community safer. And of course, Sheriff, great partnership. Love working with you. Everything the Governor said was absolutely correct, accurate, and true. And before I say a little bit about the bill itself, it would have been so much easier if no one paid attention and the bill passed and everyone high-fived. That would have been so much easier to say we had an immigration bill, we did something, and we move on. But this governor right here does not stop. I've had the honor of working for him. I watch him on a day-to-day basis, whether it's the general running of the government, whether it's handling emergencies, hurricanes, border interventions down in the southwest border, and in this case, you know, making sure the right thing happens and the wrong thing doesn't happen. We have the hardest working, most pro-law enforcement, most effective governor in the United States of America, and it's an honor to work for you, Governor DeSantis. Now, having said that, the governor spoke, and a lot of the conversation has been about what isn't in this bill and why it doesn't go far enough. I am in the executive branch. I work on behalf of the governor. It is not my place to be a policymaker, but I do think it's fair game for me to talk about what is in the bill. And in full candor, I appeared before the House of Representatives in good faith when the original bill was published. I went there with the intent to tell the lawmakers from a law enforcement perspective what our concerns were about this bill, because my hope was that they would fix that portion. That didn't happen in the revised bill, and that didn't happen in the bill that passed the House and Senate. So it's important to talk about what the governor mentioned, which is this will put a complete stop to operations at the Florida Highway Patrol, at FDLE, at all of our local agencies. We've been doing great work with the federal government for a long time. It's a new world now, and we're excited to get back into this fight. And by the way, we're in this fight. Yesterday, I received a call from Homeland Security. We're already working together. We pulled an operation together. We did it within a couple hours. We had an airplane up. We captured 14 illegal immigrants. And we did that working together with our partnership. Back in Sheriff Ivey's office with the governor, we talked about, the sheriff and I, how closely the Florida Highway Patrol works with our local agencies, including the sheriff and Brevard County Sheriff's Office. This bill frustrates those relationships. This bill prohibits, in fact, those relationships. And I'll read directly from line 1078 of the bill that passed. Any communication with or coordination between a state law enforcement agency and a federal immigration agency concerning the law must go through the Office of the Agriculture Commissioner. Further, any interagency agreement, MOU, we're going to talk about MOUs later. We're going to be with the federal government later, the governor and I, but it says any MOU, which is the basis of our interagency cooperation, must go through the Office of Agriculture. And then finally, if a local government entity or a local law enforcement official, like our constitutional sheriff of Brevard County, requests assistance regarding federal immigration laws from a state entity, state law enforcement, that local sheriff must coordinate that request through the Office of Agriculture Commissioner. Now, I don't want to get too granular, but I started as a law enforcement officer when I was 19 years old, and back in 2003, communication, intelligence sharing, everything was different than how it is today. But looking at how things operate, looking at how HSI and ERO, enforcement and removal operations, looking at how the sheriff's offices and my agency work together to share intelligence and to execute on our very important duties, to put that roadblock in our way, whether it's intentional or not, will have a devastating effect on our ability as state law enforcement and local law enforcement to work together. I spoke with HSI, a senior agent, the moment I saw this provision, and I said, what would this mean for your MOUs and your ability to rely on local law enforcement and state law enforcement? And he said two things, and I wrote it down so that I had clarity. He said, first of all, we can't do this mission alone. There's been 4 years of opportunity cost of securing our border. That means that there are millions upon millions of people in this country that shouldn't be here, which makes our job even more difficult in meeting that match. So he said, first of all, we need the help of state and local law enforcement, but more importantly, he said, we 100% agree and support agency-to-agency MOUs, and we would like to execute it with the Florida Highway Patrol today. If this bill were to become law, that memorandum of understanding and our ability to work on behalf of the federal government would be terminated, and that is unacceptable. And with that, Governor, I thank you for your leadership, and I very much appreciate your effectiveness, sir. Thank you.
So think about it. If you were trying to actually solve the problem, is there, and different people could have different ways to approach. I mean, I don't have a monopoly. You don't have a monopoly. But if you honestly wanted to solve the problem, is there any way in hell you would do what Dave just outlined they did in this bill with this agriculture commissioner and putting the bottleneck and not allowing us to unleash state and local in a strong way? Of course you wouldn't. The only reason you do that is because you want to make Florida a de facto sanctuary state. This bill takes us backwards from where we are right now. There'll be fewer deportations of illegal aliens. I have no doubt about that. Part of the reason they didn't even mention the word deport in the entire legislation. So this is not just a difference of approach. This is a difference in values. Do you have the values that wants to uphold the law, have interior enforcement, and remove illegal aliens from Florida and the United States? Or do you not? Or do you just don't want to have voters talk to you about it? You just want to be able to say you did something and continue going about your ways and doing all this stuff. But clearly, to have designed a bill like that, you don't have the approach. You don't believe in what we believe in terms of strong borders, big deportation program, rule of law, protecting families, protecting communities. So I think that gives away the store. I think that gives away the game. Because it's one thing if they had just done something that was, slightly more weak than what I have proposed, but still moved us forward. This is like, a half step forward and 5 steps backwards, the way this bill is structured. And a lot of the Chinese illegals that we interdicted may not have been able to do that. We're working with the local PD, and then we refer them over to ICE. Well, if the Ag Commissioner didn't want us doing that, then that would have never happened. Do you want Chinese illegals just running rampant in the state of Florida? I don't. I want to be able to stop it. So the proof's in the pudding on this. And it doesn't matter what I say or Dave says. If that's in there, you can see that, and you know that this thing stinks. All right, Nikki.
So my case is basically a classic story of the revolving door policies, okay? So this session is very, very important because the revolving door policies are continuing to happen no matter how much our state house and our Senate are working to protect us. So my husband was killed by an illegal alien drinking and driving. He had a past of multiple high-risk traffic violations. He was a revolving door policy case. He, ICE was never called on any 3 cases prior to killing my husband, Shane. Then, even the night my husband was killed, he still was not put on an ICE hold or detained, or he did get detained, I'm sorry, because he did get taken to the jail, but they had a small bond on him. So the next morning, I found out more details, and it took me to get involved to get an ICE hold placed on him. And this shouldn't be happening. He should have had that ICE hold placed 3 high-risk traffic violations prior to killing Shane. Many American families are being victimized every day. Every 1.5 seconds, an American is victimized by an illegal alien crime in this nation. According to the House Committee on Homeland Security Majority Report 2024, traffic offenses were at the top at 1,206, 343. Then came weapon offenses, then sexual offenses, and then kidnappings. And these are just the numbers reported. How many aren't reported? Because these people are not documented here. As a state, throughout the years, Governor DeSantis and many others have worked so hard to protect us from the Biden administration. The Biden administration had borders where they can just come in and run freely and do what they want. Now is the time to stop. There are still 20 counties in the state of Florida that do not enforce illegal immigration rules or laws. They keep the revolving door open, and it's unacceptable. My children do not deserve to have their mother in constant survival mode every single day because somebody, one of our leaders, decides it's okay that people who are illegally here can continue to break the law and keep getting on our soil. Many funds are going to illegal aliens, such as the in-state tuition. But nothing is going to these victims, these children that are victimized by illegal alien crimes. Just over, I forgot which article I read, but Health News in Florida 2024, we even spent $500 million on their health care. Not $1 is spent on a victim or a child of victim illegal alien crimes. I am in support of Governor DeSantis' call for this special session because sheriffs need to get on board to protect their citizens. Funds need to stop going to people that aren't even supposed to be on our soil. And penalties need to be raised for illegal alien criminals. I support all proposals of law enforcement compliance, which honestly shouldn't even be a discussion topic because they should be upholding the law in the first place. They should also be upholding the criminal penalties for illegal entry, appoint a state immigration enforcement officer to make sure this mission is running smoothly and it's actually being done. Expand the unauthorized alien transport program, the gang enforcement, and deny of all bail until ICE is notified of all illegal aliens. I am also in full support of our governor, because if our leaders took immigration policy seriously, I would have my husband, who served his lifetime for this country. My kids would have their loving father, and the many other victims that are affected who are silenced would not be suffering, feeling alone, and struggling to rebuild their lives. Nobody talks about the long-term aftermath of these crimes. I learned over the years there are no resources for any type of victim of illegal alien crimes. To the point I worked very hard with a team to start launching a Voices Foundation. It's called Victims of Illegals Championing Enhanced Security. And this is to bring awareness so these victims can stop feeling alone, because I know everywhere they turn, they just feel like they're getting pushed back. Our government needs to start supporting the victims and stop encouraging the criminals. I do not understand, and I never will, why I am sitting here right now asking state leadership to comply and uphold the law and pass bills to protect our families and our children as as voting citizens. You're not the ones coming home every day to your spouse or your child's ashes, struggling to survive due to a crime that is 100% preventable. They are not coming home to that. We are. And it's time you call all your local leaders. If they are not supporting Governor DeSantis with this, you need to flood their phones. They need to get on board and start protecting the ones that are voting for them.
one of the things that we need to do, which obviously the legislature didn't do, is require local and state to be a part of the immigration enforcement. And so if this illegal, his first traffic incident, if we had had these policies in place, he would have been referred to immigration. It wouldn't have just been catch and release. And so you would have been able to prevent this horrible tragedy from happening if you had just been strong on enforcing the law. So this will make a difference in our communities. People will be safer. We obviously have less crime, but it's also the right thing to do. So I want to thank you. I know it's been difficult over the years. You've always stepped up, and you're a great advocate, and you have made a difference, really big difference in the policy. So. All right, Sheriff Wayne Ivey.
So before I start, I just want to say when the governor's phone rang, I got all excited because I thought he was going to hand it to me and let me make it. So, first of all, Nikki, thank you for sharing your story and the tragedy that this has impacted on you and your family. Executive Director Kerner's right. We have great working relationships with our local, state, and federal partners. And when you look at the impact immigration or illegal immigration is having on our country, as you just heard, it doesn't stop at the border. It filters into every community.
Of every piece of legislation I think I've ever considered, I don't know that it's ever been more lopsided than this one. I think almost every single person that's weighing in is saying to veto it. I've never seen a more negative response from the public to the legislature. And think about what they did. They just rammed this through. They didn't want to do it. They showed up on Monday. The members didn't know what the hell was going on. They unveil this thing. They think if they put Trump's name on it, that somehow that's going to pull the wool over people's eyes, even though it's a very weak bill. But that's what they did. And, a lot of these members didn't really have time to fully appreciate what was going on, but it's a leadership-driven thing, and they really threaten these guys, hey, if you don't get in line, you're going to lose your committee, you're going to lose bills, you're going to lose all this. First of all, I think you got to do the right thing. I don't think you could be cowed by that, but that's kind of the pressure. So they wanted to come in, jam it through, and go and be able to say they did something. Remember, they did not want to do this. 2 weeks ago, they said this wasn't important. It didn't need to happen now, that we could wait. We had months to burn before we had to do anything. They said it was a stunt to do a special session on illegal immigration. I think they should have called this a month ago. They should have been chomping at the bit to get in there and do really strong policy. Why did I have to drag them in to be able to do this? They should have wanted to do it, but I think the fact is that they didn't have that motivation. They didn't want to seize the moment. They fought that they don't want to follow the promises that were made to the voters in the campaign. That's not their concern. They just don't want this to be a political albatross, so they're trying to do the bare minimum to be able to move. And actually, underhanded way, even kneecap some of the things we're doing right now. So that's not the way you want to do business. And I think the response from people, how negative it's been, should tell you people care about this issue. People see this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to get it right. They don't want any more of the posturing or the games. They just want to get the job done. And as I've said, I've gone through some of the things we've proposed and how they're all stronger than what the legislature did. But if people have other proposals that are stronger than what I did, do it. I don't need any credit or pride of ownership on any of this. I just want to get the job done for the people of Florida. Yes.
Are they cowing to the agriculture people in Florida? And can you do anything about the agriculture visas? And maybe they'll get on our topic.
So the answer is on worker visas. There are things called H-2A agriculture visas, where they bring in migrant workers. It is a legal program. It's a federal program, though, so the state has no real ability to affect that one way or another. There are other visa programs like this H-1B, which I'm a big critic of, because they'll bring in these people. I think 75% are from India. They bring them in, and a lot of times they displace American workers because they work for less. They're indentured to the company, and I think it's been really abused. But again, that's not necessarily a Florida thing. That's a national thing. So I'm not sure what is going to happen in Congress, if anything, on any of that. But I will tell you, even though we obviously have seen illegal labor come in the agriculture industry, we have a lot of family farms. They're doing it by the book. We've got a lot of other bigger operations that are doing it by the book. It's not like everybody involved in agriculture, is using cheap illegal foreign labor, but we know it does happen, right? And we know that there are folks who are doing it. So to ask yourself on this, why go to the ag commissioner, put him in charge? Why weaken E-Verify and put that in with the ag commissioner when we know those guys have never supported E-Verify for employment verification to begin with? And I think the answer is that they want this to be weaker than current law. And they think that if they window dress it one way, that you guys won't hold them accountable for it. But this is not what they campaigned on. This is not what they told their constituents they would do. This does not solve the problem that we have with illegal immigration in this state or in this country. So here's the thing. We are going to make sure that folks are fully educated, have gotten, and because you saw the response, but I think a lot of people are just, they know something's going on. They know the legislative leaders didn't want to support the governor's proposals. I think most Republicans in Florida are like, we trust the governor to do this stuff because he's delivered for us for so many years. We don't know who these legislative leaders are, but we are going to make sure folks understand this. And the negative response that I've seen on this already, I think this is going to get even worse as more people know what is in this. And so I think that's why they rammed it through. Now, they didn't have in the Senate, they lost 5 or 6 Republicans voted no on this bill, so they clearly don't have a veto-proof majority. But I would say we should be doing what the voters sent us to do. And I think some of these guys are getting caught up in like, oh, we want to go against the gov or this or that. And it's more about inside baseball stuff. This is not an issue with inside baseball. This is an issue with, are you delivering for the people that sent you there? Are you honoring your promises? Are you making a difference? Are you doing something that's actually going to work? And so kind of the different jockeying that some of these guys are doing and the way that's been framed, I could care less about any of that because it's not about me, it's about you. It's not about legislature, governor. It's about the future of Florida. And are we going to finally have enforcement of immigration laws? Are we going to be able to have a big increase in the number of illegals that are deported? With the Trump election,